Hey there, Mr. Witherow here. Solving quadratics today with using the quadratic formula. All right, so quadratics come in all shapes and sizes, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, sometimes they're factorable and sometimes they're not. And so at first we're going to look at a couple of these factorable, and then I'm going to show you one that's not factorable that you're definitely going to have to use the quadratic formula on. All right, so I'm going to show you a factorable one, and then I'm going to show you factored, and then I'm going to show you using the quadratic formula. All right, here we go. So the first thing is that we're going to have x squared minus 8x equals 20. All right, so remember that the first step is that we have to move the 20 to both sides, or to the other side, to get this side equal to 0. So we have minus 8x minus the 20 equals 0, right? And then we say the factors of negative 20 that give me negative 8 are x minus the 10 and x plus the 2 equals 0, because negative 10 times 2 is negative 20, and negative 10 plus 2 is in the negative 8. And then we set these equal to 0, right? And then we say that x is 10 and x is negative 2. All right, so those that are pretty good with factoring, then you can do it this way, right? Sometimes, as mean old teachers tell you to say, hey, we don't even if it is factorable, we want you to use this thing called the quadratic formula, because there are times that they're going to give you problems that are not factorable, and you have to use this quadratic formula. So the only way to get better at it is actually to use it and to try problems. All right, so the formula has this wild and crazy looking thing. So just go with me here. So x is equal to negative b, or the opposite of b, plus or minus. We call that opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, if you're into music and you liked a little tune to help you memorize this, YouTube it, say quadratic formula song, and I'm sure you'll pull something up. I'm not a singer, so I'm not going to sing it for you. So the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So who's this a, b, and c? Remember that a is attached to the x squared, b is attached to the x, and c is the constant. All right, so you have to identify this. So let's take this and move it over here. All right, so we have x squared minus 8x minus 20 equals 0. So first of all, let's identify what a, b, and c are. So a is 1, b is negative 8, and c is negative 20, right? So this is your 1, that's the coefficient, and then constant. All right, so let's see what we got here. Here's our formula. We take these numbers and we substitute it in, right? All right, so this says the opposite of b, right? So let's just write this down so we can see it. So the opposite of negative 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 20 all over 2 times 1. All right, I would highly recommend you to put them in parentheses. Put everything in parentheses, everything, because that way then you can see which ones change, and that this becomes a positive and this becomes positive over here. Okay, so we say x is equal to, well, the opposite of negative 8 is 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared is 64, and then negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 times negative 20 is a positive 80, right? And then over 2 times 1 is 2, right? So it's very handy if you have a calculator. Hint, hint, get a calculator. All right, and then we say x is equal to 8 plus or minus, and 64 plus 80 is 144 over 2. And then we know what square root of 144 is. That is 12. Perfect. So we say x is equal to 8 plus or minus 12 over 2. All right, so now we get to split it, right? Now we're gonna split it because it says plus or minus. So we say x is equal to 8 plus 12 over 2, and x is equal to 8 minus 12 over 2. That's what it means by plus or minus. 8 plus 12 is 20, divided by 2 is 10, right? So x equals 10. Hey, we had that up here, very good. And then 8 minus 12 is -4, divided by 2 is x equals -2. Hey, we had that over there. So you can do this, or you can do this. Today's lesson, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna really work on this. Again, because some of these are not factorable. So some of these are gonna get what we call an irrational solution, meaning that you're gonna have a square root in your answer, all right? So this is what we're looking for. Let's look at one that's not. So this, again, we're gonna try to work on here, and these are steps. I would highly recommend you to go ahead and rewind and watch what I did again, so you can see this. And you need to, if you have a calculator, you can do a lot of this in your calculation, in your calculator, all right? All right, let's take a look at one that doesn't come out so nicely, all right? So what about x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0, all right? So are there ever two numbers that we multiply together to get 1 that add up to 4? No. So that means we're gonna need the quadratic formula. So it's the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus the 4ac all over 2a. That's what we're looking for. All right, let's identify a, b, and c. A is the 1, b is the 4, and c is 1. All right, let's substitute this information in here. All right, so x is equal to the opposite of 4, all right, because that's b. B is 4, opposite. So notice how I put it over here and I put it in parentheses. Plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4, and then 1, 1, all over 2 times 1. All right, let's make sure I did this right. B is 4, so I put that there. So this is the opposite of b. This is not negative b, this is called the opposite of b, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4, that's a constant, a, 1, c, 1, all over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, I did. All right, let's look what this does. So we're going to say equals, well, the opposite of 4 is -4, plus or minus the square root of 4 squared is 16, and then minus 4 times 1 times 1 is 4, all over 2 times 1 is 2. All right, 16 minus 4 is 12, so this is -4 plus or minus 12 all over 2. And I would recommend you to do it just like this. You're going to need plenty of paper to do it, and just keep marching it down. Now, square root of 12 gets a little tricky, because square root of 12, you have to simplify that. So remember that the square root of 12 is really the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. And the square root of 4 is 2, and then so it's 2 square roots of 3, right? Or the other way you can do it is your tree, right? 4 times 3, and then 2 times 2. That means the 2 gets free, right? And the 3 stays on the inside. That's what that means. So we're going to replace the square root of 12 with 2 square roots of 3. So -4 plus or minus 2 square roots of 3 all over 2. All right? Now, see how we can't do that? That's irrational because there's this square root in here. So technically, we would be done, right? If you got to this point, I'd be happy. But let's go ahead and continue and show you what the real answer will look like. All right? The real answer tells me that I can take a factor out of 2 here, right? I can certainly factor out a 2. I can take a 2 out. So if I can take a 2 out, I would say 2 times, and this would be -2 plus or minus square root of 3 all over 2. All right? Now, notice that the 2's can cancel, and so I'm left with negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. Now, I would say this is my answer. Now, again, don't go looking for decimals or something like that. This is where you're at. But I'm going to tell you right now, boy, I tell you, if you get to this point, I'd be happy. But right here is really, truly the answer that you're looking for, because that's how we're going to look. And sometimes it's going to look like this. Sometimes it's going to look like this, because you can't do anything with it, and you're just going to go with it. All right? But you're going to have to follow steps. Get all the way down here. Use your calculator if you need to. All right? Get plenty of paper. You're going to need it, because you're going to need to show all this work. All right? Okay. Watch the video over and over again so you can get a good feel of it. Keep having fun.